Special Day on Violence Against Women, as selected by the Swiss chair in office for this year's HDIM. Domestic violence is one of the most pervasive human rights violations and crimes in the OSCE region. It is a form of violence that manifests itself in psychological, physical, sexual, and economic abuse, exacerbated by lack of visibility and gender-based stereotypes. Unfortunately, still too often, domestic violence is viewed as a private matter to be settled within the family, while police officers and the justice system are reluctant to investigate and address the victim's needs. In Ministerial Council Decision 1505 on preventing and combating violence against women, participating states are encouraged to address violence against women through legislative reform, support to victims and their children, access to justice, and capacity building of the relevant institutions. The OSCE participating states have engaged in a variety of efforts to implement not only OSCE commitments, but also international conventions and legal standards on gender-based violence and domestic violence, such as the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, and the Council of Europe's Istanbul Convention. New legislation and protocols have been adopted. Police, doctors, and judiciary have been trained. Campaigns have been run. Shelters have been established. All these efforts are commendable. Still, evidence shows that 1 in 5 women in the European Union has experienced physical or sexual violence from a current or previous partner. But only 14% of these women reported the most serious incident of violence to the police. Data from other OSCE regions is not systematized and therefore remains unknown. So let's ask ourselves, how come there is still so much violence against women and domestic violence? How come there is so much underreporting? How come the victims choose not to go to the police? And when they do, how come the police does not take their case further? Good reporting only makes things worse. We shall send a clear message to the OSCE region that violence against women and domestic violence shall not be tolerated. Efforts to prevent and combat domestic violence shall focus on adequate protection and assistance to victims and children who are oftentimes indirect targets of such prevalent and deep-rooted violence. We shall also send a clear message to the perpetrators that sentences for such crimes will not be negligible, and that our law enforcement, prosecutors, judiciary pursue all cases of domestic violence, provide relevant evidence, and ensure that this crime is adequately adjudicated and victims receive proper reparations and redress. For the discussions today, I am pleased to be joined by Mr. Sergei Kyslytsya, Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. Besides leading a successful political career, he has been engaged in efforts to advance gender equality, serving as an excellent example that men, too, should be advocates of gender equality. He is a career diplomat and has held various diplomatic posts over the last 2 decades. From 2006 until March 2014, he held the post of Director General of the Directorate for International Organizations at the Foreign Ministry of Ukraine. And in March this year, he was appointed Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs. In addition, from 2007 until 2011, he was a member of the Steering Committee for the Equality between Women and Men of the Council of Europe. In 2012, he was elected to the newly established Gender Equality Commission of the Council of Europe, and since July 2014, he assumed responsibilities as a chair of the group. I am also glad to have here today as our second introducer, Ms. Rosa Logar, Executive Director of the Domestic Abuse Intervention Program Vienna, and a tireless and prominent advocate for prevention and combating violence against women and domestic violence in Europe and beyond. She is also a lecturer at the Department of Social Work of the University of Applied Sciences and member of the Austrian Interministerial Working Group on the new Domestic Violence Act. Ms. Logar is also the president of the European Women Against Violence Europe network, and she's participated in selected international activities with the UN and the Council of Europe, among others. Last but not least, our moderator today is Mr. Thomas Vernon, who is the head of the Democratization Department in the Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights since 2012. Mr. Vernon started his career in the early 1990s as international lawyer and has experience in legal, judicial, and governance standards and reforms, and worked in various capacities for a large number of international organizations and agencies. Mr. Vernon holds a law degree from Cologne University, a diploma in international human rights law from Geneva University, and has qualified for judicial career at the Berlin Cassation Court. Thomas, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much indeed for giving me the floor. Let me first welcome you warmly all to this 8th working session of the Human Dimension Implementation Meeting. As you all are aware, this is a session on violence against women and children, a specifically selected topic. It's a real pleasure for me to be able to moderate the session. I'm seconded today by Ms. Ayla Van Heel, gender officer also in the Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights. Before I will give the floor to our distinguished introducers, please let me quickly recall the modalities for the working session. Most importantly, you know, there is a speakers list which you can sign up to right behind me. Then you, before you can speak, you should wait to be given the floor by me. You will be allocated a speaking time. We have agreed according to the list. We have now roughly 20 speakers on the list, so we have decided to give speakers 4 minutes to make their contribution. Before you speak, please be so kind to introduce yourself to all of us with your name and the organization or delegation you are representing. Wherever possible, we kindly ask you not to read prepared statements. Whenever you have a document that you wish to be circulated and brought to the attention of all participants with more details than you could present in your 4 minutes, please be so kind and distribute this through the document distribution system, which is at your disposal at the entrance of the conference. You are also kindly invited to speak, to keep your comments brief and to the point, but also to speak slowly so that the interpreters can properly interpret into the respective language what you're saying. This is very important, and it's also very important to allow the rapporteur, Mr. Donatas Butkus, who is sitting over there, to capture very well what you're contributing, and also to facilitate the work of the note taker, which is Ms. Lana Acker, equally sitting over there. You're obviously free to ask questions relating to the discussion, but please make always sure that your contribution is straight to the topic we are discussing here today, which is violence against women and children. Criticism is also very much welcome, but should always be constructive. Let me recall now once again that when I give you the floor, you have 4 minutes to speak. Now, with this short introduction to the modalities of this meeting, I wish, without any further delay, give the floor to our distinguished speaker. We start with Mr. Sergei Kislitsa, the Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. Mr. Kislitsa, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, and good morning, everyone. As Beatrice said in her opening remarks, violence against women remains one of the most pervasive human rights violations. It has far-reaching implications for women's inclusion in society. It is a major obstacle to women's participation in all aspects of social, political, economic, and cultural life. And ultimately, it excludes women from the democratic process. OSCE is a security organization, so the conflict-related violence against women, especially sexual violence during and in the aftermath of conflicts, affects millions of people, primarily women and girls. It is used as a deliberate military tactic. It may take place in camps for internally displaced persons, at checkpoints, detention facilities, or in homes. Conflict situations are often characterized by lawlessness and state institutions functioning poorly, if at all. In recent years, the United Security Council has passed a number of very important resolutions related to women, peace and security, including 1325 and at least 6 other resolutions. These documents collectively aim to address sexual violence and conflict, the issue of impunity, and establish the importance of the full participation of women and the inclusion of gender perspectives in peace negotiations, humanitarian planning, peacekeeping operations, post-conflict peace building, and governance. On April 25 this year, the UN Security Council, in its open debate, formally discussed the report of the UN Secretary General and on conflict-related sexual violence. The document highlighted the following as key issues to be prioritized for immediate action. Those are prevention, services, justice and impunity, monitoring and reporting. As you can see, the tasks are not fundamentally different from the issues defined within the OSCE and the Council of Europe.